This is Greg Luzinski, one of the great home run hitters in the game today.
It's a lot better, isn't it?
Yeah.
My problem is, I feel like I'm getting back, but I have a lot of movement. I can't tell all the time.
Well, you took about 10 bad swings and found out yourself, but you didn't know that it wasn't there at all.
That's always been my problem. When I get in trouble, I go straight forward instead of taking it back. And if I don't get it back and hold it, I have a tendency to rush out and move my head and the ball jumps on me.
I'll be watching all year.
Even the great hitters in professional baseball need help. Welcome to the Art of Hitting 300 with Charlie Lau. If you think hitting a baseball is hard enough by itself, you also have to deal with fielding gems like these. And you also have to face pitchers like Nolan Ryan, who can throw pitches up to 100 miles per hour on given days. Charlie Lau, the hitting coach of the Chicago White Sox with over 30 years of baseball background, believes that fundamentals should start early, continue through the formative years of high school, and remain with you throughout your entire career. After observing over 1 million swings during the course of his baseball career, Charlie believes certain fundamentals remain constant. And during this cassette, we will attempt to point out these basic fundamentals of hitting. We'll be observing some of the greatest hitters in the history of baseball, from George Brett to Hall of Famer Willie Mays, to the Phillies' powerful slugger Mike Schmidt. Also, after the instruction, Charlie will select his top dozen hitters of all time. And why don't you think of your favorites and see how they match up? Hello, and welcome to the Art of Hitting 300 with Charlie Lau. I'm Don Drysdale, and behind me, Charlie Lau is talking with a group of youngsters just about hitting. Charlie, for the last few years, has been known as one of the top hitting instructors in all of professional baseball. There's some good tips going on right behind me, so let's duck in and listen.
Hi, fellas. I'm Charlie Lau, and I'm a coach with the Chicago White Sox, and we're going to talk about hitting today. We're going to talk about good words. We're going to talk about bad words. We're going to talk good words being rhythm, balance, extension, and bad words possibly being tension. After looking around at most of the successful hitters in the big leagues, I found that most all of them do 6 or 7 things, everyone.
Charlie, I've got a question. I've read your book about the Art of Hitting 300, the absolutes of hitting. What are the absolutes of hitting?
Don, number one is a balanced, workable stance, a preparatory stance, the things that you do in your stance, the alignment and so forth before you swing the bat. Most good hitters have a square stance, their toes are square, but I think the thing that we should be aware of right now is the balance. I think we all could see that they all had this involved. A good example being Willie Stargell. A lot of movement with his bat, but I think Willie's key would be the movement of his feet and his hips. With movement like this, he ensures balance throughout his swing. So balance is always on the balls of your feet. I don't know of anything you can do, and if hitting a baseball is hard to do, you better be balanced. And this is a good habit to balance yourself. All of a sudden, you have got to the balls of your feet. If you'll come to home plate and stand up straight and relax and bend over at the waist and soften your knees, all of a sudden you have found this. This is a habit that allows you to balance yourself at bat after at bat and day after day.
Well, Charlie, is balance the only thing you have to have before you swing at the ball?
No, Don, I think that we're going to go to the next one and possibly the third one. We're going to talk about rhythm in a stance. Rhythm maintains balance. All of a sudden you have a Willie Stargell that does it this way, but I think you're always seeing a movement with the feet too, also before they get quiet. It's a quiet period. All of a sudden they have a trigger. They might tone it down a little bit to a very slight, and all of a sudden they have a trigger to explode and be positive and aggressive. George Brett, great student of hitting, great trigger. Carl Yastrzemski, a great trigger. Reggie Jackson, with his feet moving, maintains a good initiation. Even with Reggie's great strength, his mechanics are good. Here we see a backward movement of the front foot of Carlton Fisk. This is a key to his trigger. It allows him to make a positive and aggressive move right back at the pitcher.
Charlie, I've read in your book you've got to get back to go forward. What do you mean?
Well, Don, the best way to explain it sometimes is people relate to golf. All of a sudden we have a man aligning himself, balancing himself, and there is a backward shift of the weight, and as he swings the bat, there's a forward shift of the weight. Tennis players, they have a transfer of the weight, and hitting a baseball is the same way. Possibly you can see it better here, but all good hitters at one time get to this spot to launch themselves. They have got to be able to pick that foot up to lead themselves into a stride.
Charlie, I noticed in your stride you had like a closed lead foot or a striding foot.
Yes, Don, it is. I'm a firm believer that all of a sudden you think toe closed, you think toe closed. I think that your hip has to be closed when your stride is finished. Then when you transfer your weight, your hip opens, your hip leads the bat through the hitting zone. But to eliminate setting your foot down on your front heel, losing balance, and causing your head to go here where you don't see the ball. All of a sudden you say, close, close, close. It'll open a little bit. But at least I'm not going to sit down here, lose my balance, and lose the flight of the ball. If you think closed, it'll open a little bit, you'll land on the ball of your feet, and you'll be able to maintain the discipline of your head over the plate. Successful hitters are always aware of their front lead foot. It's a key.
All right, Charlie, now that we got the feet squared away, what about gripping the bat?
There is no black and white rule. Just like there's no black and white rule that says, hey, I've got to start my bat here, 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 here. Well, I think common sense is going to dictate what a grip on a bat is going to be, because obviously all bats don't have the same grip, and all hands aren't the same length and width. Now, we know that that's awkward, very, very awkward. Now, the other extreme is that one. Now, that one works better than this one. But again, that's somewhere in the middle feeling. In any way that you can get tension out of your hands, we're not looking for squeezing. The adrenaline is going to flow in a game condition. Any way that you can get the relaxation in and let things flow and glide and let it happen, as compared to stiff, tense, and stiff and tense does not work.
This is kind of like that old question, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Does the bat start the swing, or do the feet start the swing?
Don, I think we have two different examples here. Steve Kemp would be moving his bat dramatically here, and all of a sudden he will hitch down and his foot comes up and he goes forward. You would have a Stargell type who is waving and very dramatic here, but he's going to start it with his hips. The foot leads everything. But again, we go to what does the bat do? Kemp's bat did that. Stargell's bat goes here, 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 here. Yastrzemski used to be up in here. All of a sudden he took a stride and landed here. Roy White started from here. Walt Weill had one thing in common. That bat got to the ready position and launch position, whatever phrase you want to use when that front foot hit. And I have not opened my whole body. I'm still parallel. Now as I take my stride and transfer my weight onto the ball, I usually have a good weight shift forward.
Hey, Charlie, wait just a minute. It appears that, every swing you're taking that ball and hitting it right back through the middle, right through the pitcher.
Don, I think everybody should think that I am going to make a positive, aggressive move right back at the pitcher every time. Bang, bang, knowing that it might be different, knowing that I might step here on a ball away, or if I'm balanced properly, I might open up on the ball inside. But you cannot, your mind gets clouded. You can't think that fast. Just say, I'm going to make a positive, aggressive move back towards the pitcher.
The one thing, though, about the swings, they all seem to be very relaxed.
Well, for an old man, I wasn't too bad.
And the other thing I noticed, it appeared that your head was always in the same position. It's always down. Is that right?
Well, it better be down because I know if it goes up. We know that if your head is in that position to hit the ball, you have a chance. All good swings are taken Little League, high school, professional baseball. No matter where there's a good swing taken, that happens. Now, when the foot has opened and the chin comes up, you do not see the ball, you don't have much chance to hit. The chin can turn, you don't see the ball. You can move your head forward as such a little bit. It'll go forward, you can still see it. If that chin lifts, or if that chin turns, you have no chance to hit the baseball. Of all the absolutes, this I feel is the most important. Keep your head down. Carlton Fisk gives a good example of keeping his head down. He knows he can't hit what he can't see. If you don't keep your head down, you won't see the baseball.
You know, Charlie, being a pitcher, you're always aware of the bat, and every swing you take, you're always through the ball.
Well, Don, extension might be the best word in our game. Baseball is a game of extension. Pitching coaches talk about we have to get our arm extended to throw the ball hard. I happen to agree with this, but when does extension happen in a baseball swing? Most people believe that that is extension right there. I happen to believe that too. All of a sudden, you have got to extend at the point of contact of a baseball, but most people want to quit. This is when we have lead arm extension. I think that bat has to do that. That is called extension to me. And I think it's a great thing. It was your term hitting through the ball, but I think if you'll watch my lower half, if that bat does that, I have a transfer of the weight forward too. A classic example of a weight shift, George Brett. Stride, shift the weight, bat hits the ball, and great extension on through the ball, releasing his top hand at the proper time. I'm a firm believer that the swing has to be taken here. It has to be there. Your weight has to be over after you swing. Now it comes to top hand dominancy. It's usually a right hand thrower and a right hand hitter. In my case, if my top hand is my dominant hand, all of a sudden we have a swing like that. Now that's an exaggeration, but not much. Now how do we watch the ball if we roll that hand over here? Right at the point of contact, the bat head will come up. It's pulling my head out of where I know it's got to be. And now we don't have a weight shift. And now when you hit the ball good, it'll do that. It will not carry out of the ballpark. So I started experimenting with that type thing, and I found out that strong guys, the ball goes about 30 foot farther than if they keep both hands on the bat. I think I would be the first one to say keep both hands on the bat and extend, but it does not work. The only guy I know that can do it, and do it well, is Mike Schmidt. Reggie Jackson for 2 years, his work habit was lead arm extension. Lead arm extension and discipline of the head. That helps this. Now, if you're going to talk about getting your top hand off the bat, police it. Make sure that the bat comes all the way on through to here with your hand underneath, and then release it. It's ridiculous to have a boy swing like that. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about getting the bat all the way here and then release it. Let's take another look at lead arm extension. The stride, transfer the weight, starts the bat, makes contact with his hand underneath, releases at the proper time. The result's a home run.
Charlie, in hitting through the ball, as you demonstrated, can you hit through the ball and still hit to all parts of the ballpark?
Yeah, Don, it will, and I think if we could all go back and live our career over again, we'd all say, I wish I had used a little more of the field. I know if Don Drysdale was pitching right now, I would not think about pulling the ball. His natural movement on the ball was away, and if I tried to pull, he made an awful good living on guys trying to pull him, left-hand hitters trying to pull him. One of the most successful hitters of all time who used the whole field to hit in, Roberto Clemente. Keys to hitting the ball the other way. a lack of tension, which allows the hands to lead the bat head through the hitting zone. Being off the plate and not rolling the top hand, keeping the top hand underneath. These are all keys that allow you to do this. Checklist, total lack of tension. Being off the plate a little bit allows you to be successful. So remember, the absolutes allow you to swing the bat. The final line is allow you to swing the bat, watch the ball, but it starts with a workable, balanced stance. The rhythm maintains balance. It gives you a trigger to swing the bat. It makes it so your hands get to a launching position. It allows you to transfer your weight on through the ball and still have good discipline with your head. Now we're going to get to possibly the mental aspect of the game and possibly being a situation hitter. There is a way to make it easier on yourself. Obviously, a man on second base and no one out, will give myself up. If I make out, I have got to hit the ball on the ground to this side of the field to advance that runner from second to third. Now, a left-hand hitter gets up on the plate. He gets closer to the plate, and he might get deeper in the box. Now, I'm not saying that he cannot pull the ball from here. It's easier to pull the ball from deeper in the box, but the key is getting up on the plate. I have got to get closer to the plate so I can force the ball to that area. Now, right-hand hitter, a man on first and second, he has got to hit the ball over here so that if he does make out, he still advances that runner from second to third. Everybody should be able to execute by hitting the ball the other way, especially a right-hand hitter. We have got to advance runners, and it's a stat that will never be in the records, but I think big league clubs are keeping that stat. These are winning hitters. You have got to be able to do this. And a lot of times when the big, strong guy tries to do it, he hits a home run. Advancing the runner is the most important aspect of winning baseball. But now it comes down to certain kinds of pitchers. I know that if Nolan Ryan's throwing, I am going to come back here, and hopefully the umpire doesn't see me, and I'm going to try and get all of it. I'll take what they can give me this way. The reason being that it gives me longer to see the ball, and maybe the 98-mile-an-hour fastball is only 90 miles an hour, which gives me a greater chance. Now, if the man comes to mind, if Tom Lasorda was pitching, I don't think he ever threw a ball that reached home plate. So now we got to get up in the box, and we got to cheat this way. Common sense dictates that I'm going to come up here with a slow breaking ball pitcher, and I'm going to get closer to the plate with a Drysdale type that threw at 90 miles an hour, and it moved that way. When it got to home plate, it was a good tailer. I cannot stand deep in the box with that kind of pitcher, but yet, if I'm a right-hand hitter, and Don Drysdale happened to be pitching, I would sneak back here, because he had difficulty pitching from there out, because the natural movement on his ball came in. Most any right-hand sinker ball pitcher with a right-hand hitter, you can look in. And when you look in, you say to yourself, I'm not going to hit a home run. It's going to be quick but not hard. And the key to looking for a ball from the middle in is to make your head go down. Once again, my most important tip, keep your head down.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Now let's recap the absolutes. Number 1, a balanced and workable stance. Then you have the rhythm and movement in the stance, a good weight shift, striding with that front toe closed all the time, having the bat in a launching position, making a positive, aggressive motion back towards the pitcher, a tension-free swing with your head down all the time, hitting through the ball and using the whole field to hit in. And using all of these principles, here's what it can do for you.
Stop me from lunging, it stopped me from getting over anxious, and stopped me from trying to muscle the ball. And as long as I can keep that in my mind to stay away from those bad habits, I shouldn't have any problem in hitting the ball.
I would have to think, too, that a positive aspect as far as you're concerned is you've seen the rewards that other people have reaped because of Charlie Lau and working with him. So you know it's not just a first-time deal.
No, it's not a first-time deal. You know, George Brett was his prime pupil, and if you can have a guy like that to hit 390, you know, I'm quite sure that every other ball player wants to hit 390 also, and so why not listen to a man of Charlie Lyle's caliber?
In the early '82 season, Ron LaFleur's average was up over 100 points.
Are there any questions?
How would you go about hitting the ball with 2 strikes?
I believe that you have to give a little bit. I would widen my stance a little bit. I might come in here a little bit, but I think stance would have a little more to do with it. I would also alter my thinking about what I was going to do with the baseball. I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to make contact. I'm going to hit the ball. And probably why you got 2 strikes in the first place was you were trying to hit it too hard and you didn't see it and you were trying to pull it. So you say to yourself, I'm going to widen my stance, I'm going to give in a little bit, I'm not going to swing as hard, and I'm going to try and hit the ball as hard as I can right back at the pitcher. Now, that's too simple for people to believe it works, but it does work.
Ted Williams speaks a lot about the hip action. Do you believe much in that?
Good. Come up here and we'll work this out. Now, I know that the hips have to open. I know that they have to move and they have to do that. But I also know that if I was to go to a young boy and say, be definite with your hips, I'm going to tell you to swing the bat with your hips. Go ahead. A big emphasis on swinging the bat with your hips. Go ahead and do it. Good. I like that. But again, we'll take a little boy like that and a little boy like that. Now here's a high school boy. Swing the bat with your hips. Let's see where his head goes. You show me a guy with a quick hip, and I'll show you a 190 hitter. Because they do not follow the ball long enough. A guy with a quick hip is usually very vulnerable from the middle of the plate out, and he will never see a breaking ball. But yet I know the hip has to work, but when you say emphasis on the hip, the head is going to go right where the hip went. And again, this step has to be. This step is like this. Now, I haven't opened my hip. If Ted would have said, you stride and then you explode your hips, which maybe he did, and we all get tied up into definitions. Ted Williams, one of the greatest hitters of all time. A lot has been said about Ted's quick hip action. As we see in this old footage, the famous quick hip was the end result of a near-perfect weight shift. From past experience, I found that talking about weight transfer makes everything else work in the proper sequence. When it's all said and done, we're both talking about the same thing. I just approach it a little differently. I would say I emphasize a transfer of the weight which makes your hip open, which makes your hip pivot. But if I was to say to a boy, swing the bat with your hips, we have everybody leaving the area where I have to be to hit. Does that answer that one? Good luck to you, pal. Is there any more questions?
I have one. Let's say if someone's having a problem with their hitting and someone like you that knows what you're talking about isn't around.
I'm not all that much smarter than your coach, if any. I would go to him and say, Coach, I don't feel good. There's something the matter. But I'm going to give you a checklist of things you can look for yourself. Usually when you don't swing the bat properly or you don't see the ball, a pretty good rule of thumb, George Brett has a saying, anytime he does not see a pitch, anytime he swings the bat and feels awkward, it's a balance problem. And what he does is he'll look down at his feet and square up his toes and back an inch off the plate. Because in frustration, with tension, or trying to hit it too hard, he has probably crept up on the plate and got back on his heels a little bit. He has a checklist, that being one. Balance, when you hit well, you balance. When you don't hit well, you're not balanced. When you hit well, you see the ball. when you don't hit well, you're not seeing the ball. Well, there's a reason sometimes for not seeing it. The most prevalent being tension. I'm tense, tight, and I swing like that. Hitters creep towards the plate, they'll never creep off the plate. Hitters will creep wider and wider and wider, and hitters will creep closed. Look down and align your feet and square them up. Balance yourself. Those two things right there, the biggest checklist I could give you.
Coach Lau,
Yeah.
I've been having a little trouble hitting. I've been hitting with a closed stance, and I'm having trouble with the curveball and outside pitch.
Come on up here. Let's see if we can work this out. You show me your stance. Come on.
Okay, I'm pretty close on the plate with my stance. Got my right foot back and my left foot up. And I'm in this position.
Well, young man, if you're that close to the plate, go ahead, do it. And you extend your arms and get where you have to get. Hopefully, we talked about that being an absolute at the point of contact. Now, when you take your stride, you have got to step away.
Right, I'm stepping in the bucket.
Exactly. Well, that's why, because there's where the bat head is now. And if you didn't step there, you couldn't get the bat head to the hitting area. Now, to correct that, I'm going to take a stance, the same stance. Now, you're the coach. What would you tell me to do? Kind of tell me to square it off. Then what would you tell me to do? Lean over a little bit and maybe back off the plate just a hair so that when I do lean over and balance myself, I'm in this spot. Now I'm going to take a stride straight there. Now, when I was closed before and close to the plate, you had to do this to get the bat head to the ball on a strike. And all this movement from here to here with your head, you didn't see many pitches either. As hard as you tried to see them, it's a physical impossibility. When you're doing this and turning your head this way, you don't focus on the ball. The first thing I would do is say, square up your stance, get balanced, lean over a little bit, and find a workable spot for your hands. Let's see where your hands go.
Get it squared off stance.
Square it up. Let's see what happens. If I was to make a suggestion now, I'd say free up your elbows. Get them loose. Where are they going to be nice? That's kind of where if you're asking me, that's what I'd do. I don't know what it feels like, but it's more workable there than the other way.
Okay, feels comfortable.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Carl, you just do it both ways. Do it the old way. Here, here. Okay.
I come back there. I always, when I'm here, I always end up right there. It's not too bad.
There's no doubt about it. And that move that you had with your bat, that you freed your elbows up. Okay, do it the other way. Good. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Little League, high school, you're an outstanding major league player. Everybody has problems. The problems are solved by going back to bare fundamentals, repetition and good work habits.
I hear a lot of coaches talking about a good wrist snap. How important do you think a snap of the wrist is?
I don't believe a wrist snap is all that important, just like the hip turn. Some people say hip, 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 but I know that if I was to go to you and say, swing with your hips, that's the first thing that happens. You would never see the ball, but yet I know how important it is. Now, when you get to the wrist snap, no, I'm not going to buy that. Now, I would say that kind of wrist snap, yes. But if you're talking about a wrist snap like that, and I think it bears defining, really, what are you talking about? This type thing or that type thing? I know that type thing does not work. Now, if you're talking about a wrist snap like this, yeah, I would buy that because I think that's really what happens in a swing. In fact, I don't think I know what happens. And I know that a lot of swings are taken like that, and I know that doesn't work. And I think that should answer your question.
Coach Bob, what's the best way to hit behind the hitter on a hit and run?
What's the best way to hit behind the hitter on a hit and run? Are you a right-hand hitter? Obviously, Your coach has told you to learn how to do it. And I think all right-hand hitters, if they cannot hit the ball from the right-hand side of second base to first base, are dummies. You do it by repetition. You get off the plate a little bit, and to hit the ball the other way, I can do it much better left-handed. Your hands have got to lead the bat head through. That's the only way it's going there. I say, by repetition, get off the plate a little bit. If you want to close up a little bit, but to do it one time and you have not worked on it in batting practice, it's ridiculous. You learn to handle a bat in batting practice by channeling your practices into good practices. And I think you should think middle, even when you're playing a game, and not even on a hit and run. Do it all the time. That's a good work habit. And once your work habit becomes that way, you say, I'm going to hit the ball that way, and by reflex you do. But to come out and say, this is the way to do it. You back up off the plate a little bit, and you might get forward in the box, and you relax your hands with no tension, because if they're tense and tight, it's hard to do it. If they're relaxed and loose, your hands lead the bat head through. Pete Rose, the man who holds a major league record for base hits. Possibly 2/3 of his base hits have been to the opposite field or to the middle. The thing that sticks in my mind about Pete Rose is his intense dedication of making contact with a baseball. He doesn't try and force anything. You can hit to the opposite field, hitting from either side of the plate. Here we see Mickey Mantle hitting with power right-handed. Switching over to the other side, we see left-handed power to the opposite field, using the same exact principles. Here's a man who probably did it best. The thing with Roberto is never watch his feet. He did everything wrong. His upper body was near perfect. Total lack of tension. Is there any more questions?
Charlie, what should we have our young men, how should we prepare them in the dugout and on the on-deck circle to get themselves ready to hit? What should they be looking for? How should they prepare themselves?
I don't know how many times you play a club during the year, but I'm sure there's an awful lot of pitchers that you don't see or you haven't seen before. Now, if you happen to be in a dugout where they warm up where you can see him, I'm going to watch his delivery. I'm going to try and find out what his ball does. Is he a heavy ball pitcher or is he a riding ball pitcher? Is he a slider ball pitcher or a curve ball pitcher? Does he throw a changeup? Now, these are the things that I would be looking for in a dugout before the game, during the game. Does he pitch in a pattern? How would you think he's going to try and get me out? Can he get his breaking ball over the plate? A plan of attack when you go to home plate. You're sitting in the on-deck circle waiting to go to home plate. The situation sometimes dictates what your thoughts are. But all these thoughts have got to be thought out then, and not when you get to home plate, because when you go to home plate, there's only one thought in your mind, and that's watch a baseball. Now, with the man on second base and no one out, obviously, we're going to try and hit the ball to this part of the field. Now, you know that before you go to home plate. When you go to home plate, you're saying, I know where I'm going to hit the ball. Now all I got to do is watch the ball and do it. But don't ever go to home plate and say, I have no idea what he's going to throw me. I don't know if a fastball does that. I don't know if the curveball or a slider or a changeup. You can look. You can watch. Is he a high ball pitcher or is he a low ball pitcher? We've talked about a lot of things today, fellas, and I want to thank you for your attention. But remember that your coach and I are here to lead you. You're the people that are going to make yourselves good hitters, not us. We can point you in the right direction. And thanks again.
Charlie, are you finally through?
Yeah. Fellas, I'll see you.
Take care, guys. You want to get in and talk about those 12 greatest hitters?
Let's do it.
Okay, come on. Well, Charlie, I know one thing, that if any of those youngsters out there get to be as good a hitter is what I think you're going to name why some pitcher's going to be in a lot of trouble. But, you know, you've been around a long time in this game of baseball, and I've been around quite a while, and you've seen a lot of great hitters, and I know that you've got 12 that really kind of stick out in your mind, if not more. I'm sure there's more, but let's start with number 12 and work right on down to that number 1 man.
I didn't see the old day player. I saw Ruth, Gehrig, Cobb, Hornsby. They put numbers on the board I can't comprehend. I just don't know.
Right.
And I didn't see them, but they had to be awful, awful good. Now, the players that I have seen, let's take Reggie Jackson. Reggie's probably in the top 2 or 3 strongest hitters with a bat in their hand that I've ever been associated with. He also had the ability to rise to occasions in World Series and playoff games and to carry his team for a 2-week period late in the year. He also became consistent towards the end.
Well, that's not too shabby a start. He's still playing, and I know that he can still add numbers to his record. Who's next?
Oh, Don, we got to throw Pete Rose in there. Pete probably played the game with more intensity than any man I've ever seen. He also had the ability to watch a baseball. I stole from Pete Rose a little bit about how critical watching a baseball is. This intense concentration should allow him to break Ty Cobb's all-time hit record.
You know, it's amazing, Pete Rose, when I first saw him come up with Cincinnati, somewhere along the line you knew that he was going to be a great ball player, and I consider Pete Rose really a self-made ball player.
I would say that his dedication is second to none in any player I've ever seen in baseball.
He's great. All right, Rose, Jackson out of the way. Now we go on down the line. Who's next?
Carl Yastrzemski has got to be included. His numbers are impressive. Again, a man with intense concentration. The thing that sticks in my mind is a man that adjusted his stance several times and at age 43 adjusted it again and is very successful.
Well, Yaz is a great selection. You know, every time you go into Boston and you look at a press guide, you look at the press notes or something, why Carl's either breaking or adding to his own personal record, and that's going to be even more because, of course, he's still playing. So you've got Jackson, you've got Rose, you've got Yastrzemski, and...
I'm going to go to Steve Garvey, who's a favorite of mine because he does so many things that I talk about, and he's been good for a long period of time, and he's going to add to those totals, too.
And, of course, Garvey is the type of player that I can appreciate, and I know you can appreciate, because he never misses a game. He plays day in and day out, and if a slump comes, he fights his way through it, and he's still a great ball player. So we go to the next person.
Well, you know that I'm not going to leave George Brett out of there.
I know that. And Georgie, you look at George and you look at his youth and you look at what he has accomplished at such a young age. And if we can be sitting here 10 years from now and saying, who's the next man, George Brett might be number 1 on your list because it's infinity what he can do.
Don, we talk about these hitters, and I use the word professional hitters, the phrase, and they are all professional hitters.
That's true. You've got Jackson, you've got Rose, you've got Yastrzemski, you've got Garvey, you got Brett. That's 5. You've got 7 left.
Well, I'm going to go to a guy named Mike Schmidt, who might be combining consistency with power.
That's a pretty good choice right there, Charlie, because Mike Schmidt is really kind of a rarity in what you see today. Here's a big, strong guy, also an infielder, and runs well, but also has the great power. No question about that. Good choice. As we go down the line, you have who?
I have a Hall of Famer from Pittsburgh that you might be familiar with.
You wouldn't be talking about Roberto Clemente, would you?
The one and only.
Boy, he was a tough out. And there's a man that I really thought at times you wondered how in the world he ever did. He would be, like his head would go north, his legs would go south, and he did a line drive back to the middle, and just had great control, I guess, over that upper part of the body, which you talked about.
Whatever it was, he had it because he was an awful successful hitter.
Oh, awful, and certainly rightfully so in the Hall of Fame. Okay, let's go on down the line a little further.
Let's go to Mickey Mantle.
Mickey Mantle. I never thought that I would see a man go down the baseline any faster from the left side than Mickey Mantle for a big man. And I think what made things so great about Mantle is the natural ability from both sides was unbelievable.
Well, Don, I looked a little closer maybe. I thought he was a real superb hitter, right-handed, and left-handed was the added one. I think he was a natural right-hand hitter and possibly went left-handed, say at age 12 or 13. But if he had had to bat right-handed all the time, I still think his stats would have been as good.
Boy, he's a great athlete. I guess that is the key word right there. All right, on down the line.
I got another guy that you know a little bit, and I don't know if he's in the Hall of Fame, but I'm sure he will be, Willie McCovey.
You got me nervous off. Willie McCovey, he beat on me like a tom-tom for a couple of years. I'm telling you, he just wore me out. But they called him Stretch. And believe me, if I could get a pitch up there 60 feet 6 inches, why, he had some kind of way of stretching that maybe 360 feet 6 inches somewhere. Great, that's a good choice, you're right. Well, Charlie, we've got 9, now let's go to 10.
Well, a man that you have faced many, many times from Cincinnati, starting with F.
Oh, I know, Frank Robinson, another Hall of Famer, and again, rightfully so. You know, there's some of these guys I think I've helped get into the Hall of Fame, or I'm going to help them get in one way or the other. You know, there's a guy that changed his stance after the first couple of years. He came to the major leagues, and the rest is history. All right, down the line.
Willie Mays.
Oh, another one. I helped him, too. You know, the greatest thing I think about Mays, and I think it's a great tribute to a man, when he made the statement, he said, if I can't do it with a bat today, I'll beat you with my glove. And many days he did just that.
Or his legs.
Or his legs, that's exactly right. Boy, no question about that. All right, let's go on now.
The Yankee Clipper.
You know, I wish I would have had a chance to play against Joe DiMaggio. He quit just before I came to the major leagues, but charisma and to go along with a great player, I guess you couldn't ask for more.
I think that he did it effortlessly, like you said, Banks in there. There was just no muscular.
That's what they say. They say just to watch him glide across the outfield was worth the price of admission right there. But Charlie, that's a great group of 12.
Don, I'm not done yet. My best 3 are yet to come.
But Charlie, we said 12.
I can't leave these people out.
Well, but 12's 12, Charlie. Is that why hitters never know the count?
Could well be.
Okay, good hitters don't know the count. Who are the 3, if that's who you're talking about?
The first being a man that played for St. Louis. Maybe you know, I don't know.
St. Louis, well, it's got to be, they call him the man, Stan Musial.
Stan the man.
He was a great hitter, just a super hitter. Not only, I mean, he was the type of hitter that you advocate, that can hit balls to the opposite field, could drive it with power, would double you to death, or turn around and hit it out of the ballpark. Well, what a tough out.
Kind of a nice way to hit.
It is, and his numbers prove it.
Yep.
All right, Charlie, we've got 2 left. These are the final 2, right? No more bad counts.
No more.
Okay. We've got 2 left. Let's go to number 2 on the list, on your all-time list.
On my all-time list. Well, I watched this guy. I was fortunate enough to be on the same team and watch him day after day for a couple of years. And he also broke a home run record.
Oh.
And we're getting closer now.
Oh, yeah. I know. You haven't mentioned his name yet, and it had to come up because I gave him 17 of those. And I think that's more than any. I know it's more than anyone else ever gave me. You're talking about Hank Aaron, and I guess it had to be just such a thrill to play with him.
To watch him, just effortlessly, he did it. He made it look easy. You brought that up at one time. A little flick out there, and the ball went 400 feet.
And how many times I've seen that flick.
Along with that flick, Don, was one of the greatest weight shifts I've ever seen. It was an honor to play with him.
Well, I guess we've narrowed it down to number 1. And I know that a lot of people have got to be sitting and thinking, and I really don't know who your number one pick is. I thought we had 12 to start with, and now this is going to be 15 on the list, but number one in the heart of Charlie Lau.
Ted Williams.
Oh, well, that had to be.
What can I say? Last man to hit 400, 344 lifetime average, 521 home runs in a ballpark that was hard to hit him in, the greatest strike zone I've ever seen, and a dead pull hitter. A true student of hitting if there ever was one. How appropriate it was that on his last time at bat in Fenway Park in September 1960, that Williams would end his career with a towering shot over the right field wall. Ted Williams, my all-time greatest hitter.
In all of the baseball circles, that he's got to be recognized as the number one man.
Don, I think he did it under very trying circumstances at times. He put those great numbers up there.
Oh, that's so true, especially missing the war years. That was the big key right there. Charlie, we thank you for your dozen, whether it be inflated, whether it be the Baker's dozen, the Lau's dozen, or whatever, but it has been fun, and I really enjoyed it.
Don, it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Charlie. That wraps up the Art of Hitting 300 with Charlie Lau, and we certainly thank all of you for your participation. I'm Don Drysdale saying so long, and somewhere along the way, may we all hit 300.
We'd like to thank Rawlings Sporting Goods and the Chicago White Sox organization for their assistance in the making of this production.
Coach and I can point you in the right direction, but the other rests on your shoulders. Thanks again for your attention.